thank you very much, David Kasuma. Hallo, mein Name ist Kimia Amir-Moazami und ich warte noch einen Moment auf meine Kollegen, die mir zugeschaltet werden sollten. Pedro. Perfekt. Okay. Hallo Mohammed und hallo Pedro. Das sind Mohammed Khan und Pedro Sáez Martínez, meine Kollegen vom Young Designer Circle. Der Young Designer Circle wurde 2020 gegründet, um den Ehrgeiz und die Kreativität von jungen DesignerInnen weltweit zu fördern und sie miteinander zu vernetzen. Und das Besondere ist auch, dass die DesignerInnen aus sehr verschiedenen Disziplinen stammen und wir eben in einen Austausch weltweit treten können in diesem Programm. Der Young Design Circle steht im Einklang mit der WDO-Mission, Design für eine bessere Welt zu schaffen und durch Design zur Erreichung der Ziele für nachhaltige Entwicklung der Vereinten Nationen, den UN-SDGs, beizutragen. Wir arbeiten in dem Young Design Circle an unterschiedlichen Projekten und übernehmen auch unterschiedliche Rollen in diesen Projekten, also können unterschiedliche Rollen ausprobieren und dabei lernen. Und das Besondere ist, für mich persönlich ist das Besondere vor allem dieser Austausch und die verschiedenen Perspektiven auf Design, aber auch auf Themen, die gerade in der Welt aktuell sind. Wir möchten euch heute im Besonderen Not There Yet vorstellen. Das ist ein Projekt, eine globale Forschungs- und Gesprächsreihe, die letztes Jahr erstmals in Seattle während der IDSA International Design Konferenz vorgestellt wurde und dieses Jahr ihren Auftakt auf der Berlin Design Week fand. Wir fokussieren uns in diesem Projekt auf die SDGs 10, Reduce Inequalities, und 16, Peace, Justice and Strong Institutions. Und unser Ziel ist es, mit Not There Yet diese sehr großen Ziele greifbarer zu machen, sie in Verbindung zu bringen mit persönlichen Geschichten und dadurch auch Ansatzpunkte zu schaffen für junge DesignerInnen, um tätig zu werden. Ich bin die Leiterin des Projekts und damit zuständig für die übergreifende Vision von Not There Yet. Mohammed ist der Design Researcher in unserem Team und leitet den Research-Teil und Pedro ist für das Branding und die Konversations- und Reflexionsgespräche zuständig. I will switch to English now and would like to hand over to Pedro and Mohammed to tell us more about our research concept and the experiences that we gathered in Berlin, our first Not There Yet station.
All right, thanks so much, Kimia. So I'll just start by giving a brief overview of our approach to research. So when we're doing design research that involves talking to people, it's often done with the product at the kind of core of the conversation, whether those products are tangible artifacts or a designed environment or service. And we often engage in these conversations only when we're actually in the process of designing something. So in which we have like an end goal to use the discussion to find a problem that lets us create a design or have people reflect on a design to help us improve on our next iteration. So for this series, we wanted to do something a little bit different. We wanted to try something that didn't use design as the lens that we use to shape the way we see people and their lives. Instead, we started with this goal of collecting stories, just going out, talking to people, learning about their lives without having to push an agenda on our conversations or having a specific end that we were looking to achieve as designers. And it's only after going out and talking to people and collecting stories about their perspectives and everyday lives that we wanted to bring design back in. And after we had a collection of stories, we thought we'd then peel them back and play a role of an investigative journalist or a detective to see how design and design factors played a role in those narratives. And the hope there was that we might learn something new about the way that design affects people by bringing it in later on instead of starting with it. So that's a brief overview of our approach. And I can now take us to Berlin, which was our first attempt at doing something like this. So we started off with the story of a police station, which was built in a place called Katusatwar. And it was built in the face of resistance from local residents. And we thought that it would be interesting to find out the role that design played and continues to play in shaping the narratives around the station. And as we started coming up with questions to ask people, what we realized was that we were setting ourselves up to just have a very reactive conversation around the station, which had no narratives around it, with the local media having covered the story quite a bit. And we also started out with the police station, which was essentially a design project to meet the perceived needs of the neighborhood. And this was something that we essentially sought out not to do. But this accident or realization helped us move the conversation past the police and the police station. And instead, our conversations became about community and safety and security within communities. I also think, in the grand scheme of things, this also gave the conversations a chance to be proactive, with people sharing their visions for their community, rather than just having a conversation around the controversial station. So, after talking to people, we're now in the process of looking through the stories we collected and analyzing the role that design has played in them. And we look forward to reporting back with what we learned real soon, as we're working on putting together a booklet on our journey with Not There Yet. But for now, I'll hand it off to Pedro, who will go over some reflections about our week in Berlin.
Thanks a lot, Muhammad. Starting this research Muhammad has talked about, as well as the reflections we made during the Berlin Design Week, we had the opportunity to synthesize everything and talk about it in THF Radio. This radio is a community-based project that allows people to have a voice besides traditional media and talk about issues that affect them. We had three main takeaways from all this. First is the importance of third space. When we talk about third space, we are talking about a space that's not our private homes, neither commercial spaces where we can gather with other people. It is rather the public space where people can coexist in a way that's not mediated by consumption. We reflected on the potential of this third space for building peaceful and thriving communities, but we also talked about the need to rethink how we design and use this space, as sometimes people are not really engaging through it, but just passing around. More community engagement means a higher capacity to manage conflict and build peaceful communities, even in a more effective and proactive way than doing it solely by means of a specific institution in a top-down approach. This takeaway can be related to the issues about safety and security within communities in the area of Kreuzberg in Cottbus-Sator, which Muhammad also talked about. And second takeaway is about aesthetics as something that relate to building community and building a collective identity in every place. We identified the aesthetics of areas like Kreuzberg and Cottbus-Sator were really different from that in areas like Charlottenburg. How the streets were planned, the buildings and their facades, everything communicated that they were very different places and therefore different communities. Of course, it is also related to conflict. For example, certain aesthetics can be used by communities as a way of protest, or certain aesthetics might be as option. We also reflected on how aesthetics can even be oppressed. They are not defined by community, but rather imposed from the top. Third takeaway is about new roles of design. Design as an activity that's applied to something bigger, wider, more complex than just the product. That is what we are talking about when we talk about design for social innovation. The very example of this is the THF radio project itself. The design process has been applied, putting community in the center instead of the product. It has been born from community and not just for community. And of course, once the community is working on it and the whole system is being defined, the need to design specific products appears. For example, for the DHF radio, they had to design a space for the recording and furniture pieces. That was all co-created with the community. And here, in this third takeaway, the previous takeaways also appeared as related. For example, we talked about conflicts during co-design and how we can manage it, and this in the specific case of DHF radio, and how we can build peaceful communities, how to co-create solutions that are meaningful for everyone, as it is difficult to align everyone's vision. Thank you so much for the attention.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Mohammed and Pedro, for joining me on the stage virtually, and thank you all for listening. Vielen Dank, dass Sie zugehört haben.